It's Friday, May 17. This is the news on PBCJ. I am Simone Absalom. Jamaica can still achieve 5 in 4, says Chairman of the Economic Growth Council, the ECG, Michael Lee Chin. Convened in 2016, one of the council's primary aim was to achieve 5% growth in gross domestic product (GDP) within 4 years. Speaking at a press conference at Jamaica House on Wednesday, the chairman said while the target had not been achieved, the country has seen crucial achievements since 2016.
Noteworthy highlights would include the JSE, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, in 2018 was the #1 stock exchange in the world. It wasn't Germany, it wasn't the US, it wasn't Australia, it wasn't Canada, it was Jamaica. In 2018, as per Bloomberg, the #1 stock market over the last 5 years was not France, was not Germany, was not Holland, was not Singapore, was not China, was not Japan, it was Jamaica. The debt to GDP, as was already highlighted, has fallen from 147% to now under 100. The NIR is now greater than 3.1 billion. Inflation is 2.4%. Who would have thought in 2016 that we would have been complaining about low inflation? Who would have thought? But we now complain about low inflation. So we have actually changed narrative. Proof. The BOJ policy interest rate is now at an unheard of 1.25%. Who would have thought in 2016? The JC is a world beater in terms of performance, as I mentioned. The JC index in April of 2016 was 152,000 in April of 2016. Today, it's 410,000. Increase of 170% over the last 3 years.
The billionaire investment guru insists that the 5 in 4 targets are still possible. But for this to happen, all stakeholders must pull together. But who are these stakeholders?
The pledge of the EGC and the GOJ is necessary, but not sufficient to achieve 5% GDP growth over the next 4 years. To secure the absolute success of this mission, we need the written and public pledge of all stakeholders. We need the involvement of the SMEs. We need the involvement of the youth. We need the involvement of families. We need the involvement of labor unions, the opposition, students, teachers, professors, local investors, corporate heads, religious leaders, the diaspora community. We all need to haul together.
The council comprises of a maximum of 12 members, both from the private and public sectors. The government has been commended by the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, for the establishment of the EGC. Minister of Science, Energy and Technology Favour Williams says since the compulsory acquisition of the 49% shareholding in Petrojam, the government is moving to reconstitute the board.
Since the compulsory acquisition of the 49% shareholding in Petrojam, we are moving to reconstitute the board. There is closer monitoring of the activities resulting in Petrojam seeking clearance from the ministry on many matters.
Regarding the forensic audit of the oil loss, the minister said the feedback received has been sent to the Auditor General, who will oversee the procurement of the forensic auditor for the job.
Regarding the forensic audit of the oil loss, we have packaged all the feedback we received and sent to the Auditor General, who will oversee the procurement of the forensic auditor for the job. 4 institutions responded with feedback. These are the Integrity Commission, the Jamaica Association of Petroleum Marketers, Major Organized Crime Agency, and the Jamaica Gasoline Retail Association.
The minister also noted that the market for the heavy fuel oil that Petrojam refines has changed significantly in Jamaica.
The market for heavy fuel oil that Petrojam refines has changed significantly in Jamaica. In the electricity generation sector, The use of heavy fuel oil to generate electricity has been declining from 95% of the total to about 45% by the end of 2020. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the market for bunkering, which is the refueling of ships, will see major changes starting January 1, 2020. These changes will result in ships using lower sulfur fuels, requiring further changes to Petrojam's business model.
Minister Williams made her contribution in the 2019-2020 sectoral debate on Tuesday in the House of Representatives. Minister of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries, Audley Shaw, has launched the Jamaica Trade Information Portal, the first of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean. The portal, which aims to improve trade facilitation and generate more trade and investment, will allow the business community to have quick access to the country's trade rules. The ministry, in a release, said JTIP is a one-stop shop for information on import-export regulations and procedures and will be hosted by the Trade Board Limited. Lead broker in the initial public offering IPO of shares in Wigton Wind Farm, Mayberry Investments, has indicated that 31,000 Jamaicans will own shares in the company. Energy Minister Favour Williams made the announcement this week as she made her contribution to the 2019-2020 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives on May 14.
The lead broker, Mayberry Investments, has indicated some 31,000 Jamaicans will own shares in Wigton, part of Jamaica's energy future. What is more noteworthy, Mr. Speaker, is that these 31,000 Jamaicans were willing to invest some $14 billion when $5.5 billion was on offer. On May 22nd, next Wednesday, Wigton will be proudly listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange's main market. This initial public offer has demonstrated the appetite of the Jamaican people to invest in the Jamaican energy sector.
In April of this year, history was made in the renewable energy industry when Jamaicans were given the opportunity to invest in that sector by becoming owners of Wigton Wind Farm Limited in Manchester, the largest energy facility in the English-speaking Caribbean. Through this successful IPO, Jamaicans with the smallest purchase of $1,000 are given the opportunity to take a further step towards energy independence by owning a stake in Jamaica's energy future. The National Commercial Bank, NCB, is reporting that scammers have again targeted its customers with a disguised phishing email following the announcement of an impending major system upgrade. The message is sent from info@ncb.com, which is the subject line, NCB upgrade, urgent attention required. The most recent email is said to include a link to a bogus website, and unsuspecting customers who click the link are then asked to submit their private banking details under the guise of updating their information to avoid service disruptions. While the link in the email is similar to NCB's official website, it directs persons to a fraudulent website when they click on it. Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Paula Llewellyn, will issue a ruling today on whether charges will be laid against police officers involved in a recent controversial shooting in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. The incident left 2 civilians and a police corporal dead. The DPP confirmed that the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDICOM, submitted the case file to her office on Wednesday. She was speaking Thursday afternoon at a Rotary Club in Kingston. These shootings, which involved 2 off-duty cops and a team of officers from mobile reserves, resulted in a man being shot dead at Chedwin Park and 1 police officer and another civilian being killed after a high-speed chase ended in a motor vehicle crash. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says former Prime Minister Edward Seaga is under close medical supervision by a team of doctors, including Jamaican specialists and nurses at a hospital in Miami, Florida. Mr. Siaga, who will be 89 at the end of May, was hospitalized last Thursday and is being treated for an undisclosed ailment. The Prime Minister visited Siaga on Wednesday. Mr. Holness, in a statement, said he is in positive spirits considering the physical effects of his illness and treatment. The US dollar on Thursday, May 16, ended trading at Jamaican $136.20, down by 14 cents. That's according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily foreign exchange trading summary. The summary also notes the Canadian dollar ended trading at $101.30, down from $101.48, while the British pound sterling ended trading at Jamaican $172.60, down from $175.74. Here are the top stories making news across the region.
I have been in public life long enough to know that when discussions are at a sensitive stage, that the worst thing you can do is up the ante by trying to have some kind of public expression that may well lead to hardened positions and an inability for people to negotiate in good faith. Suffice it to say that the government of Barbados, at the appropriate time, when discussions are concluded with stakeholders at all levels, will speak to the country. Suffice it to say that by whatever means we choose, whether existing or other, there will be a commitment to providing affordable, reliable air travel between those in the Caribbean, because without that, we accept that there will be a serious constraint on our people.
We're not pulling out. The issue was that the company has been losing money for 20 years, and we've been appealing to past governments that we need help, we needed to raise the fares, that we needed some taxes reduced in order to try and keep the fares down, that the Islander, which is made in England, the company in England is in trouble, and if the company goes out of business, we won't be allowed to fly that aircraft, because if an aircraft is not supported by a company that's in business, it cannot be used in a commercial service. And we have 7 of these 19-seat Twin Otters. That is what we really should be using for the Grenada service. But the way it's currently structured, there's no way we can use the 19-seaters in Grenada because the fare's too low and the taxes interregionally are too high for us to work with the current situation.
He says, meanwhile, SVG Air will remain in the skies.
At the moment, we're still going to continue to fly. We have 4 of those 9-seaters, the Britain-Norman Islanders, and we're continuing to provide the service with those for the moment.
MP for Carrico and PT Martinic Affairs, Kendra Matherin Stewart says meetings were held on Tuesday with the manager, and they are now working on a solution to have the airline remain in Grenada despite the challenges.
I met with Mr. Gavel and the manager, Mr. Lendo, at my office at Legal Affairs, and we discussed these issues. Now, there are 2 things that are on the table. The request for a waiver of taxes for persons traveling between Union Island, from Grenada to Union Island, and secondly, the issue of subsidies to ensure that the 19-seater, if they decide to use it here, would be a viable options. Those options we will be discussing with the government, the entire government, and it's something that I intend to raise and to bring in Cabinet for deliberations and for the way forward.
She says it would be a travesty of justice to not have connectivity between the islands.
The increasing pressure of sanctions being posed on the Maduro regime by the U.S. and other allies translates into a shrinking of resources which that regime needs to stay in power. According to Mr. Cardenas, ordinary Venezuelans will continue to suffer and they will flee in increasing numbers.
In the past few weeks, I've seen very, very credible estimates that 30%, 10 million people, could ultimately flee under the current conditions. So that is going to mean a very big problem for the frontline states, including Trinidad and Tobago, of attempting to absorb these people.
Jose Cardenas observes a steady war of attrition is being waged between the Maduro regime and the Guaido coalition. He told us he's not very confident that current rapprochement talks in Norway between representatives of both sides may bear much fruit.
It's going to be a slow grind as conditions continue to worsen and the diplomatic pressure continues on the Maduro regime. I don't see any alternative, but the Maduro government continued to entrench itself against the popular opposition and a refusal to countenance that major change is needed in Venezuela.
CARICOM has adopted a position of non-interference in the Venezuela situation, although it's offered to mediate in any peace talks. However, Mr. Cárdenas believes the Venezuelans are taking careful note of who their friends are right now.
When a new government comes into power in Venezuela, you're probably going to see decisions being made in Caracas with a reflection on who stood with us in our darkest days and who did not. And so whether it's business, whether it's diplomatic, I'm sure there's going to be a lasting impact among the new Venezuelan government, who I can't predict who's going to be there. But there will be a sense among Venezuelans who was with us in our darkest days and who wasn't.
In sports, plastic bottles will be banned from being used inside the National Stadium. Major Desmond Brown, General Manager of Independence Park Limited, IPL, which is responsible for the maintenance of the National Stadium, says the bottle throwing incident recently could have damaged Jamaica's ability to host international sporting events. He is quoted in the press saying, "What I want patrons to know now is that they will not be allowed to bring in any drinks in their luggage. And when drinks are being sold, whether by vendors or concessionaires, it will be sold in cups." End quote. In other sporting news, the Jamaica Olympic Association signed a 4-year sponsorship deal with Mayberry Investments worth $10 million. CEO of Mayberry, Gary Peart, says the investment company has a track record of investing in sports. Peart says at the end of the partnership with the JOA, its member associations should be financially viable. And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. Pleasant viewing.